This is like a nice chair though. Like now that I've been sitting in it every day or every time this class is, now I can see why like someone would steal it. Cause it like, it's just nice.
This was in the comic today, and the other day, it was funny, it was right after I had made, for some reason, the critique of, you were sewing pants.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, are they the pants from the traveling pants? The sisters of the sisterhood of the traveling pants? This is dumb, just squirrely remark. Squirrel. But then the paper had a comic about the sisterhood of the traveling pants too.
It knows you. It's what
There is, it's like, yeah, that happens. The comics kind of somehow. You can toss it now or keep it, because I only needed it for this
I'll keep it.
tremendously large student body. That I'm glad you guys are taking the course though, because I like this stuff.
Yeah, I like that it's small. It's cool. It's like less of a like super like class experience. It's more of a like
A seminar or
yeah.
Although, strictly speaking, there are 6 of us, and that's why some folks can't be here but are in the class.
But still, like, the biggest class, the smallest class I've ever been in is like 15 people. So this is tiny.
However, so Schopenhauer. So yeah, the information I've just basically given you real quickly came from Safransky. Which we have in the library. His books don't really get cheaper for some reason. I've been interested in his new book on Goethe, because I've been slugging through the German version of it for a while now, and I'm curious what a translation of it into English would say, because an awful lot of what I've been reading I'm just guessing at, because mein Deutsch is sehr schlecht. However, it's also a fun thing to help me learn German, but
It's a really hard way of going about it.
well, I mean, you know, like if, you know, while you're falling asleep, you know, pet the chihuahua, read a little, pet the chihuahua, read a little. You know. Actually, it was kind of messy last night. We discovered that the chihuahua had some dangles or dingleberries, whatever you call
Oh,
it.
gross.
And I was like, oh, you know, not good having a chihuahua with dingleberries in bed. You know,
Long hair chihuahua, I take
yes.
it? Okay.
4-pounder. But as a result, I gave her a kind of a shampoo. Not sorry, that's has nothing to do. But you know, pet the chihuahua, read Goethe.
Maybe bathe the chihuahua as well. If you like it.
Chihuahua doesn't seem very interested in Goethe. Actually, she'll come over to me and go. She does. She puts her paw right here.
Aw.
It's smaller than my finger. Her paw.
Aw.
You know, so she's. I've never shown you the. I have.
No, you haven't. Is that your only pet?
No, we have 2 chihuahuas now. We used to have lots more, but as we've gotten older, and they are hard to take care of, so we have photos. I should do albums, I think. There she is. can see she's little. Teeny tiny dog. Princess looks just like Chloe from Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
I've seen
Scariest movie I've ever seen.
that.
I've told you that. I think it's hilarious. But so, yeah, so that's Chrissy. But so, when we look at Schopenhauer's dog, by the way, the French people, and there are icons.
Oh.
of them.
Aw. They say that people like accidentally start to look like their dogs the more like they hang out with them.
That's true.
Just like subconsciously. And that's definitely displayed in those two. They kind of look similar.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm not
So
even sure
weird.
if this is like a real painting or if this was, I don't know. But, yeah, there are pictures of them like standing by the river from the
Aw.
back, you know, like iconic
Aww.
pictures of them.
He's kind of like a nice man.
You know, it seems like you probably would have been able to make good friends and have good conversation. He did have friends. It's one of his favorite things to do is he would always lunch in one of the cafes near his apartment. He didn't actually own the house. He just had an apartment in the house where he died eventually. Pretty old, actually. Didn't pull up Wikipedia. You can get a overall sense. 1788, 72. Main thing were his books. And the first one, which came out of his PhD thesis, was The World as Will and Representation. And so here's kind of the gist of the philosophy. He's responding to Kant. Remember, in Hegel's and his contemporaries' responses to Kant, they kind of break that barrier of the thing in itself and the ego, because while Kant says the ego must be there, the thing in itself must be there, and God must be there, but we can't actually see, hear, taste, touch any of those things. We can only experience phenomena. Hegel, of course, points out that, well, but it is phenomena. The experience I have of consciousness becoming self-consciousness, becoming the dialectical process is all something that I'm aware of in phenomena in my mind. This is part of what I experience. And so all of the ideas I have of God, all of the ideas I have of the objects in themselves are actually part of culture, spirit, language, and that is part of my experience. So there is no boundary that isolates us from understanding all of this stuff. Instead, studying phenomena, describing how phenomena evolves, is true knowledge, right? That's opposed to Kant, that basically says we can't know all that stuff. Well, Schopenhauer comes along and seems to accept Kant's version of it more, and says that we can't know the thing in itself, but what the thing in itself is. So he describes it in the book, right?
That doesn't do
Despite the
much.
fact that you can't know it, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's karma in the Buddhist sense, fate. It's the will of nature, basically, to screw with us, to make life miserable. We will die. There's no way out of it. Life is suffering. I mean, all this Buddhist stuff that says how miserable life is, why we want to escape it, and the only ways out, etc. That's the thing in itself for Schopenhauer, the will. And there's nothing you could do about it. You have great intentions, but it just smacks the heck out of you. Now, in thinking about this, it strikes me that a contemporary way of viewing it would be to think of entropy as the second law of thermodynamics, right? Which says that in a closed system, the system loses energy and will deteriorate. Everything falls apart, right? We talked about the second law of thermodynamics yet?
I already know about that because I'm in biology right now. I like.
They teach that in biology?
What?
They teach that in biology?
Yeah, well, entropy is, you can relate that back to a cellular level, especially when talking about energy and stuff, because everything is moving slowly towards a state of chaos, and just like the natural flow of things is to be random, not to be organized.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very well put. Although life combats entropy.
Yeah, because it takes more energy for life to function.
We're much more complex than life was a billion years ago,
So,
or a million years ago.
although we're slowly leading into disorder, like,
No.
that's confusing.
To some, it is, but to some extent, it seems like we're fighting. And a really neat book is Dorian. I don't know if you know Dorian Sagan. Did you know Carl Sagan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Dorian is his son.
Who's Carl?
Is also his mother's son, too, which that kind of happens.
Wait, what? Carl Sagan and his mom had a child together?
No. Carl Sagan, I don't know if they were married, because her name is different. It's Margolis instead of Sagan.
And it wasn't, okay, I heard you wrong.
She writes too, by the way.
I liked when reading about Schopenhauer, about like, what was it? It seemed like it wasn't as depressing though, because he was talking about how like nothing really mattered, but at the same time he was like saying, the only way to like truly reach like that next level is to like escape the human condition and like give up the desires of the flesh and stuff. But at the same time, like, why? What's the point of doing all that? I mean, we are just like animals, so why not just like? Because he also talked about like pleasure being the main drive of things, but like also he said instead of pleasure being the main drive of things, for compassion to be the main drive of things. But isn't compassion just helping the pleasure of others? Like. I don't know, some of the things that he said like contradicted each other, but it was still like interesting. Because even if you're being compassionate, in the end it is for your own personal gain, no matter what. Like everything you do, no matter how nice you think you are, is for your gain.
Well, in a neat way, Hegel and European thinking after Hegel realizes that because of the evolution of meaning, the context changes the meaning of words, so that you can say one thing in one context and the exact same thing in another context where, of course, the meaning is totally different. So it's not really the negation or contradiction of it. So you might say, I hate everybody. The reason I hate everybody is because I love everybody and they're all doing the worst things for one another. Which means I love everybody.
Yeah.
Right, in a different, right, I mean, so you write like that, and a lot of people scratch their heads and think, you're just contradicting yourself. But in kind of this European way...
Everything's kind of a contradiction anyway, so...
Yeah, you realize that you can say both things, that it's wrong to think that it's just one particular way. In the same way when I introduced the idea that the Earth goes around the Sun and the Sun goes around the Earth, and both go around a vacuum, and both are the vacuum center. Both also don't move at all, and then, or the whole system all moves around the galactic center. In other words, I've got model after model after model. How many models have we not even thought of, right? And each of these models, even though they apparently contradict one another, only apparently contradict one another because we're holding them up as models and not stepping back from the models and realizing these models are conceptual tools and not reality, right? So, and the Europeans think that way. So when they say things that seem contradictory, sometimes joyfully so, and within like one sentence, I am and I am not, Well, in some sense, of course, I am, but I'm a process, so I'm not, And so the Europeans are kind of sophisticated that way, hurt Americans' heads, typically, because we feel like they're contradicting themselves. But they're enjoying this game of language.
Everything being confusing.
Yeah, well, it's an art form for them. So a lot of the literature is deliberately obtuse and difficult to follow. And sometimes it seems like, that the more difficult they are, the more kind of intriguing it is to try to follow the thought of the person that's speaking that way. So Europeans tend to like that, whereas Americans tend to not like that. British, by the way, think of them as associated with the Americans that way. It's kind of an American thing, British thing too. British like to be very succinct and, objective and non-contradictory, whereas Europeans tend to love to say riddly kinds of things.
Isn't that what's his name?
Oh, there's lots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The last author in the text, Derrida, or Derrida, however you say it, Derrida, I've heard most. Or even when I talk about pronunciation, am I saying pronunciation right? Because actually, people will say, what's the correct pronunciation of that? My answer is there is no correct pronunciation of any word.
Yeah.
It depends on your accent or where you're from or
How you're feeling.
What about you want to rebel against social norms?
yeah. I mean, I hear people, like say, oh, the correct pronunciation of Debussy.
Yeah, it's dumb because most of our words in the English language aren't pronounced right. So technically pronounced right.
Also, we made up the rules, so.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. So all that means it's more complex than a lot of people would like. And Europeans tend to be in love with the more complex, generally, whereas Americans tend to look for the black and white, which basically doesn't work as well. But so Dorian Sagan, Into the Cool, talks about this characteristic of life that even though we're going into the cool, which is entropy, we fight it. We become more and more complex. We our cells try to figure out ways of surviving and passing on their genes to the next generation, etc. We try to do that, and we keep doing that. We keep creating technologies to try to help organize things, prevent stuff from falling apart, and so on.
So could you say that a lot of the Schopenhauer / Buddhist views are kind of also going against entropy? Because just in human terms, entropy could be seen as just the path of least resistance, but Buddhist and Schopenhauer views would be the opposite of that. It's not, I wouldn't say organized though, but it takes more energy and you have to go out of your way to try to
But it's still depressing, because I think you're right, but at the same time I think it's more depressing because he says it's hopeless, it's fruitless.
Right.
I mean, and eventually you're going to die. There's just no way around it. And societies will collapse, and engines will break down. I don't remember him really talking about engines so much, because the Industrial Revolution is really just beginning. But you get the idea. You know, the depression is still there because the will of nature is to frustrate order. And so this is where I can move into Wagner. Because
The composer?
yes, because Wagner was very. That's the way he was when he was born. No, I'm just kidding.
The neck here too, isn't it?
Weird looking. And a big head. Everyone says he had a really big head, and he was relatively short. So odd looking, I guess. By the way, it is Wagner, not Wagner.
I thought it was Wagner. I
I've heard
pronounced it as
Wagner.
Wagner when I was like in my head whenever I was typing.
Yeah, I did that when I was a kid. My very first LP, you know, the long playing discs that came out when I was a kid instead of 45s. The very first LP I bought was had a piece by Wagner on it, the Siegfried Ideal, which Siegfried Idol. Which is kind of like a concert piece that comes from the Ring cycle, really, or more specific. So the Ring, which is what he dedicated to Schopenhauer, consists of 4 exceedingly long operas compared to the normal tradition. The very first does Das Rheingold, so the gold from the Rhine. And Rhine, by the way, means pure. So it's like pure gold, but from the pure river. That was a 3-hour opera. But then the second one, the Valkyrie, or the Valkyries, the avenging women spirits like that were daughters of Wotan, who gather the dead bodies of the heroes, the souls of the dead heroes, and bring them to Valhalla after a battle.
So did he believe in Nordic stuff then?
Yes. Yeah, the Ring is based on the Siegfried sagas, which were all Nor's, his version of it. In fact, the text he wrote kind of like in a fake old-fashioned language in German, which is what Schopenhauer hated, because it was not a real language, you know. So it's almost like the King James Bible, you know. The English speakers never really use thee and thou and thou shalt not and stuff like that.
Puritans did, but I think Puritans did.
Probably because they were reading the Bible and using it, but it was like a fake, oldish version of English to make it seem like it was old. So they say, right? But so, Das Rheingold, then Die Valkyrie, then Siegfried is the third opera, and then Die Götterdämmerung, Götter gods, Dämmerung twilight, so the twilight of the gods. The end of them. It's the end of that era. And at the end of it, it becomes then the age of man. Right? Well, the ring is really a ring, the ring of power, right? So they, it's just like the Tolkien ring in The Lord of the Rings.
So I keep thinking what I'm saying.
It has power, etc. There are dragons. So basically what happens is in Rheingold, a dwarf who's really, a lot of people will point out it's like a Jewish character, and very anti-Semitic. And so these evil characters are Jewish. Metaphorically, you
Maybe
could...
that's why Hitler related to him so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hitler said that he had listened to the Die Götterdämmerung opera in its entirety. That's 6 hours of music, 100 times.
I don't understand, because like if he's so influenced by Schopenhauer, it seems like Schopenhauer was like fairly progressive as far as like that time goes. Like it seemed like he was a pretty peaceful guy. He talked about compassion and like world peace a lot. So it was weird that like Schopenhauer influenced Wagner, who influenced Hitler. Like that's kind of weird how.
I mean,
Right.
Schopenhauer didn't like Wagner, so he wasn't influenced to become another Schopenhauer, because Schopenhauer hated the guy.
To be clear, though, I think Schopenhauer hated everybody,
Yeah, it's true.
even the people he liked.
But it seems like a lot of the like Buddhist ideals and peace and compassion and world peace and escaping the human condition, like it seemed like Wagner was pretty like into all that. So it's weird that he would let weird like anti-Jewish people stuff get into his work.
Well, when we get into the argument over it, seems pretty clear that Wagner
I mean, a lot of philosophers were influenced by previous philosophers, sort of took the previous philosopher and then changed it, and
Right.
often went against it to some degree.
Yeah, 'cause I guess that is a good like thing about philosophy though, is like everyone's just contradicting even their like people that they look up to.
Which to some degree is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
it does make it difficult for fans of Wagner's music because there's the association with anti-Semitism that's clearly in the operas. I mean, the dwarves, the Nibelungen, the ones who live Nibel below, are clearly metaphorically Jewish. But now, I could ask the same thing. Are you familiar with the Star Trek race called what was Quark's? Remember, Quark was the character in Star Trek. What the heck was their race? They were. You're not familiar with it? You never saw? Okay, so that won't be helpful. But now that I've asked myself that, I've got to figure it out.
What was that? What was that race representative of?
These characters, they were Ferengi, and they had pointy teeth. They're short. They had bald heads. They had big ears. When you compare them to the way the Nibelungen are supposed to look, I'm not finding a good picture of one. So he's not bald, but he's ugly and short. But usually they're depicted as short, ugly, and greedy. Very, very greedy.
Huh.
So, let me, so this is Siegfried, and this is Mime, who is a Nibelung.
Stranger danger.
So,
Why would you go to a place called Hellhole? Common sense?
Siegfried's dumb, though. He's a young, blonde, stupid hero who doesn't know fear. I'll go there so I can learn fear. The trouble is, he needs the sword, but the sword is broken. And poor Mime cannot make the sword. He can't fix it. Well, Siegfried's powerful enough. He can make the sword himself. So guess what? Siegfried will make the sword. Can you imagine Germans saying, "You're no good at your job. You squirm." You know. This is all insulting language.
And everything sounds a little bit the fact that insulting him, it just adds to it.
Meanwhile, he's going to cook soup that he's going to poison, so that once Siegfried kills the dragon and gets the ring back, he'll give him the poison soup to kill Siegfried so he can steal the ring from Siegfried. The whole reason he's encouraging him to go and kill the dragon isn't for his own benefit, it's for Mime's own benefit. Stranger danger, you can tell. And he's a comical character. And by the way, once Siegfried slays the dragon, he gets the ring, and Mime comes with the poison soup, Siegfried just cuts his head off. And you know what? That would be like tragic normally, that an individual's head is just cut off, but the audience clearly enjoys that he's being talk about the Holocaust, right?
Yeah, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of foreshadowing. Like, just this.
Well, in the Die Götterdämmerung at the very end, Siegfried is burned on a funeral pyre, which is exactly what Hitler kind of envisions for himself. Right, and he was actually burned in a pit with gasoline, because that was all they could come up with. No big funeral pyre. I don't know how to explain the staging. He's trying to start the furnace burning as hot as possible so that he could melt the parts of the sword enough that he could put them back together.
This has to be exhausting thing to be an actor in this.
I know, they've run it around a lot.
Oh, these are so this opera is like 5 hours long, maybe 5 hours long,
Oh my god, how do you sit
and they're
that?
singing constantly.
Like, seriously in shape to begin this thing.
Yeah,
Plus, the
people-
orchestra is huge.
People always talk about how like wimpy theater kids are, but that's like way more intense than like anything.
When American Pie was an opera.
Yeah. Like 5 hours of just constant movement and singing, and it's probably so hot up there on the
And
stage.
Wagnerian tenors tend to be absolutely amazing. The most amazing one I've seen recently is the guy from Texas. And he's hilarious because he sings in German as Siegfried, and then he's interviewed in English and he's got a Texan accent. You know, and it's like,
He's pulling on this pig and singing. 1 minute of any of that is taking me down. Not to mention I can't sing.
that's like the bellows. He's pumping the bellows.
It doesn't like amazingly easy.
He's heating up the parts of the sword so that he can
Why is that guy winning?
aim it. Well, he's acting like a hateful little scumbag that he's supposed to be,
Yeah.
while Siegfried's doing all the work.
Yeah, what the heck?
So he's just being entertaining, basically. No, I'm not wearing microphone. Never heard opera.
That's intense.
On stage. While breathing like dry ice.
And working.
And pumping the bellows.
Isn't he the absolute caricature of the German view of the Jewish?
Yeah.
And he's big, blonde. By the way, I doubt if he's really blonde.
Yeah, they really stereotypical.
Fafner's the dragon.
Who's a dragon?
Fafner's the dragon. He's actually a dragon only because he's wearing a magic helmet that makes him look like whatever he wants to be. He's actually a giant. He's wearing a helmet that's made by the power of the ring, so. So he's plotting how he's going to kill Siegfried at the same time that Siegfried's making the sword.
Is this kind of futuristic?
You mean this? You mean the setting?
Setting, yeah. It's that weird pipe-looking thing.
Yeah, I don't know who. This is not Wagnerian.
It kind of looks like they're trying to make it look like they're very futuristic. Except it's like fantasy.
Don and I saw Lohengrin, which was one of Wagner's earlier operas. We saw it performed in Berlin, and they just had all the people all like in a circle, and the main characters just sang in the middle. It was very boring. I mean, they had like a sword fight and everything, but everything was just the same staging of the whole thing.
Only because I was very young. I couldn't appreciate it, but very disappointing.
He's making the soup.
A little early to be making the soup. What is going
Isn't this great that you can be watching this kind of, what an educational tool. Wagner wrote the text, the music, the orchestration, the stage setting. He even built his own theater for these, which is still there, and they have a Wagner festival every year, and it's sold out 5 years in advance.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that's not the only place where you can go and see the ring cycle performed consecutively on like 4 separate days. Seattle has its own, and one of my friends went there and he said the whole audience were full of Nazis
Oh God.
in Seattle, right? So the climactic event now, this is, I don't know if you've noticed, but the music has been building up, right? But now he's going to add another musical instrument to add to the orchestration here. It's called the hammer and anvil, which one of the main critics of the day was absolutely furious because that's noise, not music. But notice how it's used in order to accent the music.
Stupid man.
He's supposed to be just this dumb, blonde, huge, German, Aryan kind of heroic, right? Here we go.
I mean, that is kind of music. It's like percussion, yeah. It's sort of like,
The poor guy, now everything else he has to do is home play, and now he's got a hammer and anvil correctly.